What's up, gangsters? It's time for a little bit of testing over here at Rube Goldberg Laboratories. So what happened is, a couple of days ago, one of the members of the Scale Modelers Critique Group allowed us how she was having some problems using one of the ammo by MIG packaged sets of weathering materials, specifically the chipping for mechas kit. And it's like a lot of his kits. It's a little package that includes three things: one bottle of acrylic paint, Scratches Effects chipping fluid, and engine grime, which is an enamel product. Now, I don't have that kit, but I do have the materials that are in it, because like all of his sets, you can buy everything individually. So I've got some Scratches Effects. Come on, camera, right there. Yeah, focus on this, not on me, right there. And some engine grime. And this is a fairly new bottle of engine grime. And I've got plenty of different colors of MIG acrylic paint, but that doesn't really matter for this situation, because if I understand correctly, that acrylic is just in that little set so that you can paint chips on using sponge technique or paintbrush or whatever. Whereas the chipping fluid, Scratches Effects, and the engine grime are on there so that you can do a chipping technique with the engine grime wash that MIG has shown in one of his videos. And it basically allows you to create these real dirty, nasty looking streaks that you might find running out from underneath a section of a mecha armor or something, I suppose. Anyway, it's pretty cool. And I can totally understand why you would want to do this. And I'm not exactly sure why it didn't work for her or what exactly she was doing, but she challenged me to try and repeat the process the way that MIG does it in his video. And hey, I love a challenge. I love to test things because I always learn something. And this actually is a technique that I've wanted to try for myself. So, as it happens, she also wanted it done over white XF2 Tamiya acrylic. And I've got this little paint mule here from the other day when I was doing some testing with colored pencils, watercolor pencils. And there's nothing on here other than the paint and the watercolor pencils. So, perfect test subject. And I think we should get right to it. Okay, let's get started with spraying some chipping fluid. I'm going to just use my Iwata Neo, which has got a 0.35 millimeter needle in it. And I've cranked the pressure down to about 15 psi because both of these materials are pretty thin and you just don't need a whole lot of air. So, got the Scratches Effects, and I'm going to just add a little bit directly into the cup. I'm going to take a whole lot for this, and I will spray a layer on here. Now, one thing about all these chipping fluids is that probably the single most important variable in how well they work is how heavy you spray. So what I've done is just one layer, that's all I'm going to do. You can see it's heavier in some places than others. Probably heavier than I would really like for it to be, but that's okay. I'm going to just let that sit there and dry. Now, the specific instructions were to let that stuff dry for as long as it takes to wash out your airbrush with water. Now, I personally have never found that the amount of time involved really matters that much with these chipping fluids when it comes to the chipping fluid itself. Because basically it's just liquefied hair gel or hairspray. And, I mean, look, you can wash that out of your hair at any time. A day later, a week later, whatever, hopefully. Hopefully you're not letting it go for a week, because then you're nasty. But you get my point. The amount of time should not really be an issue. The main thing is that the stuff has to be completely dry, obviously, before we get to work with it. Otherwise, we'll just make a mess. So, what I'm doing while I'm yakking here is just using some water to rinse out this airbrush from the chipping fluid, so you can see how long that took. And okay, airbrush is now nice and clean, but what you will see is that in that amount of time, chipping fluid is not totally dry. So obviously we're not going to go to the next step until it is. But what I can do is I can speed that up a little bit by just applying some air with the airbrush. And again, I don't think this is going to affect the outcome. So this is not exactly what you see Mig doing in his demo on the video. But then again, with video editing, who knows how long he really actually waited for it. So anyway, we'll see what we get here. Almost dry. Okay, so that looks pretty good. That looks nice and dry. And like with most of these chipping fluids, you should be able to see a sort of a light sheen where you've applied it. Hopefully you can see that there, how it changes from where it is over here to where it isn't over here by my thumb. So there we go. Now, what I'm going to do without skipping a beat is I've already got the engine grime nice and shaken up. So I'm gonna crack that open. And I'm gonna put just a little bit of it right here in the cup. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the top of this jar before I do that. I'm normally not such a barbarian with dumping straight from the bottle into the cup for that very reason, but I didn't feel like getting out a pipette, so there it is. Alright, so let's see how this stuff sprays. Looks like it's going to be okay. It's an enamel, so it should spray fine, but I have found when I've tried to spray some of these ammo enamel products that they can clog a little bit. They've got a lot of pigments and different things in there that affect the way they airbrush. So anyway, hopefully this is going to be fine. And what I'm going to do is just spray on lightly the way he did in the video. Okay, a little bit of a technical glitch there in that I ran out of space on my video card right as I was about to spray. So anyway, couldn't have been better timing. I resolved the issue, and now we can get on with it. Okay, so there you go. I've sprayed pretty lightly and a little more heavily in several areas. Now, one thing that I did not pick up from Mig's video is how long he wants us to let this dry before going to work on it. So I'm going to give it about the amount of time that it takes me to go eat a sandwich. Okay, so it's been about half an hour, and we are now going to try and do the actual chipping on this thing and see what we can get. So I've got just some water here. I'm going to just put a little bit on the bench where it's easy to get to. And I've got a paper towel because one thing about chipping I've learned is that the less water you can use, the better off you are. And you can even see in Mig's video on this that what he does after he gets the brush wet is he takes most of the water off on a paper towel. So I would be doing that anyway, but we're definitely going to do that because we want to do it the way he did it. Now, what you'll see here is I've got this brush that I've actually made some time ago for this type of thing, for streaking, where I clipped the end of it real uneven like that, so that it would make good streaks. So here we go. Let's see what we can get done. I'm going to start at the bottom, like Mig suggests, because what he wants is for the streaks to be kind of concentrated at the top of the panel or the section, whatever you want to call it. So you can see kind of what I've got going on already. It's behaving pretty well. Let's get a little more water and try again. And what I'm going to do, let's go over here and pretend that this boundary right here is the edge of where I want the streaks to be coming from. And this time I'm using a little more water, and you can see what happens there. It starts taking stuff off very quickly. And you can even see where my wet fingerprints have left marks very quickly. So, and that's to be expected. This is it's an enamel product on top of hairspray, and the enamel is always going to be susceptible to heat from your fingers when it's only been drying for just a little bit, like this has. So anyway, you have to be careful and pay attention, which obviously I'm not doing, or I wouldn't have giant fingerprints in the middle of the work here. So here we go. You know, this is, I mean, these are nice. Nice streaks. I like them. It's pretty controllable. So again, I mean, it's how it ends up looking depends entirely on your brush strokes and your technique, and that's just one of those things that everybody is going to have their own individual style for. You know, if I come at it a little bit more with this kind of motion, then things change quickly. You get a different look to it. So again, you just have to always be really aware of how much pressure you're using. You know, be always watching the surface to see exactly how much material is moving, because one thing with chipping is things can change dramatically from one brush stroke to the next. So you just always have to be on your game and really looking and paying attention, and you know, don't get too carried away. Don't move too fast. Got a big fingerprint right there. We'll scrub that off. See, that's one great thing about these techniques. If you don't like it, you can scrub it off and start completely over. Let's switch to a different brush and see what kind of a look we can get. I'm going to try something smaller. We'll see what happens. Maybe. I can chase it out of this drawer here. Let's try just this little old flexi-file thing. Let's see what we get. And again, just working to a panel line. Now I didn't take very much of the water off of that, and you can see that's pretty concentrated and it works fast. So again, creates a slightly different look to it. This brush, even though it's small, is a pretty stiff brush. So let's try something that is more round, but really, really soft. This is just a cheapo Humbrol synthetic brush, and I'm gonna take most of the water off of it. And again, you can see it really comes up fast, which you would expect because the chipping fluid is very exposed in this situation. So I would expect it to be washing off pretty fast, exactly the way we're seeing here. So I can't really say that any of this surprises me. It's doing pretty much what I would expect it to do. I think one thing I would conclude is that for this technique, I would definitely try to apply less chipping fluid than I did. Because again, the more chipping fluids you have, the easier it's activated and the faster it comes off of the surface that you're working on. So what that translates to is less chipping fluid equals greater control. And that's really critical to success with this process, is having some control, because you can see things can get out of hand in a hurry, and you can end up with a lot more chipping and streaking or whatever it is than you really want. But regardless, I think it's pretty cool. I think it looks neat. I don't know when or if I will use this technique, but it's definitely got some potential. Okay, so there you go. Chandra, I hope that helps answer your questions about this process and how to do it. I can understand if you had trouble, because trust me, anything involving chipping fluid is just pure alchemy. I mean, it's magic. I can't tell you how much frustration I went through getting to the point where I felt like I had any sort of confidence with the process. Lots of practice, lots of less than satisfactory results, and just learning along the way what really were the most important variables. If you watch my video on chipping fluid comparisons, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's a whole bunch of variables to the chipping process, and some of them are really, really important. The amount of chipping fluid you have on is probably the most important to your overall success. After that is the permeability of the color that you're removing, and in this case that's pretty much a non-issue because you're spraying it on there so lightly. But it's definitely magic. And I'll be the first to say that the MIG Scratches Effects fluid is a bit more temperamental than the regular chipping effects fluid or hairspray, which is really all I use anymore. So I would encourage you to just keep working at it, keep trying it. The products are good; they do what they're designed to do. But this is not as straightforward as just shooting some paint, where you kind of can mix a recipe and get a real predictable result. So anyway, I hope that helps, and appreciate you watching. All right, much love.